everyone here. It's good. All right. There you go.
All right. Okay, folks, it's 6:02, Tuesday night from beautiful Bali. It's time for Bitcoin Filter. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad to see you here. We've got a really interesting show. We're going to talk a little bit about price. Price is down. Price is volatile. Why is that? I don't know. We're going to talk a little bit about why that's going on. And there's lots of interesting news for us to cover. We've posted lots of interesting news to the Bitcoins in Bali website. For those of you who aren't familiar, we have this discussion going on all the time. It's just on Tuesday nights we get together in person. When we're not in person, we have the discussion on the Bitcoins in Bali Facebook group that you can see right here. If you see something on the web or that you want to discuss, get involved, post something here, and then maybe we'll talk about it when we get together in person on Tuesday nights. So that's how the whole thing works. So let's dive right in. First things first, the price is at 325. I think that's down about 11% since last time we got together. It continues on a downward trend. You can see here there's a, yeah, and could you move your, it's okay. This is the last 24 hours. You can see it's been kind of between 320 and 340. And there was actually a 14-hour period where it was down at 300. We're going to talk about that in a little bit here. But yeah, this is just mysterious market forces pushing the Bitcoin price around, and it's interesting. I've been watching since the fall of 2011, so I've seen this thing go up and down quite a bit. The last drop has been quite precipitous, but it's happened like that in the past and come back. So did you have a question?
Can you short Bitcoin like anything else? Bet on it to drop?
There are trading platforms that allow you to do that now. Yeah, and there's futures contracts and all kinds of secondary derivatives. Well, there's a lot of speculation that now that Wall Street has taken an interest in Bitcoin, that all of the big boy market manipulators are now involved, and so who knows what they're doing behind the scenes or what kind of Wall Street algorithms they're unleashing on the Bitcoin price. But they don't have as much power to push around the Bitcoin price as they do other things in other commodities and other things that are traded on other markets around the world. And I think I'm gonna say a little bit more about that in a minute. But we had I mentioned there was a 14-hour period where the price was at $300, and I think it's I have a theory that someone was making a statement about the ability to manipulate the Bitcoin price. But we're going to talk about that in a minute. I'd love to get your opinions as well on that, because I don't really know. I just have a few ideas. So what's Bitcoin doing in Indonesia? We're still above 4 million rupiah per Bitcoin, and we're doing quite a bit of volume. Oscar's exchange, this bitcoin.co.id, usually does between 20 and 50. You can see for the last 24 hours, they're up around 60. So this always tends to happen when there's a lot of movement on the price. There tends to be a lot of volume on the exchanges. And of course, the exchanges don't care if it's going up or down because they make a fee on every transaction. So this is good news for the market players, but the trend for us is bad in the short term. Market capitalization, all Bitcoins around the world in US dollars are valued at around $4 billion US dollars. For the longest time, Bitcoin was ranked about 89th amongst currencies around the world, but we're now at 103. So there's 190 currencies around the world, and Bitcoin's rank amongst them is 103. We're right between, what is that, Mozambique and Tanzania. So we're keeping some good company down there near the bottom of the of the currency rankings. Volatility. This number has changed quite a bit over the last week. This is the 30-day trailing average. For the time that we've been monitoring this number, it's usually around 5%, but we're at 14% now because we've had such a big drop in the price. So big price movements means lots of volatility. Lots of volatility really makes Bitcoin harder to use because people are afraid that the Bitcoin that they buy is not going to be worth what they paid for it in the future. So there's two halves to every trade, and someone is on the losing end when volatility is high like this. But again, I'll make the same point that I make every time when we look at this. The overall trend is in a downward direction. So volatility is trending in a good direction for us, but in any given week or any given month, it can be quite wild in its fluctuations. All right, we're moving on to a bit of news here, but we're still talking about price. Can everyone see this little flat tabletop area right here? Does anybody know what that is? Has anyone been watching the news at all? You know, normally the price fluctuations are all over the place like this, and it's very unusual to see a flat line like this going on.
What are we looking at?
This is the price of Bitcoin over time.
From what exchange?
15 minutes.
This is the Bitstamp exchange.
This is Bitstamp, okay.
Yeah, number 3 in volume.
So Bitstamp had some sort of thing happen on their server or something?
Nope. This wasn't a bug. This is all legitimate trades.
Gary selling.
Gary stabilized
Yes.
the market.
So what's really interesting here, what I think is interesting is you can see the trend over this time. We were as high as 385, and we dipped down here to this 275 mark. We were below $300 for Bitcoin on Bitstamp, and
psychological spending. So right locked on 300. Is that it?
well, there's a 300 wall here because one person sold 30,000 Bitcoins. Oh. Uh-oh.
Wow. So
Vinny, fix it, Vinny.
someone bailed out, basically.
Sorry, folks. We're experiencing technical difficulties with the projector here. Anyway, I know you can't see what I'm talking about, but you saw the flat line there, and essentially one person decided they were going to sell 30,000 Bitcoins at $300, which at the time was about between $8 and $20 below market value, right? And why would somebody do that? It's kind of I mean, they're losing tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost profits by selling it in that way. Because if you've got that many Bitcoins to unload, then you don't do it all at the same time, because you won't get the market price, because the number of people that are buying or selling is, you know, you're not selling 30,000 Bitcoins in a short period of time. So at any given time, there's, you know,
How long did it take for them to sell? How long was that?
14 hours.
14 hours.
14 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'd love to get your opinion on this, but my thought is that when it went down to 275, it went down on thin volume, right? So it was a bit of a panic. If everybody sees the trend, they can see a trend, and they can see it drop at a certain rate, but it might not be that many people participating in the market at that time, right? If there just happens to be a lot of people selling at a certain time and not a lot of people buying, then then they can push the price down artificially low, right? And 275, I would say, is probably an artificially low number. but it could be based on thin volume.
There was decent volume, right? You can see it.
Well, there's a spike there. There's a spike there. True, but that could be just because there was a panic, right?
Right.
But
It might have hit a lot of people's like bailout points.
Yeah,
They have
yeah.
automatic stops in their system. I don't know.
right. There could be stop losses and
The thing was, it broke below support, and when it, like, the support was around 330, the next support level is quite low. So when it goes into free fall, everyone wants out because it's going to free fall onto the next support, and it was low 200s. Well, 275, I imagine, was the support.
Well, what's interesting is that it took 14 hours to dump 30,000 bitcoins, right, at 300. So it says something about the real price and the real value based on a market depth that spans more than a minute or two, right? So basically, he's saying, I'll tell you something about market depth. I'll put 30,000 bitcoins on sale at 300 and watch what happens, right? We'll create a trough in the value of Bitcoin during that time. So really, market value is up here. He's taking all this loss during this time, right? He could be selling Bitcoins up here if he was smart about it, but instead he's putting them all on sale at this price and essentially showing that there's a lot of support for that price, right? Basically saying that price is something that will hold. If there's that many Bitcoins on sale at the same time, people are going to meet the demand and pay that price for as little as 14 hours.
Are you saying there was a test by somebody, a $4 million test?
Well, the only reason to do this is to make a statement, because it doesn't make economic sense.
Maybe just lazy.
Well, I was
Could be.
thinking on that derivatives thing, if you had leveraged bets to say that maybe it was a short-term futures contract, the price is going to be this by this expiry date on the option, and that's a huge, if it becomes a huge leverage, and like, who would have thought it would have been 300, so many days earlier, then what's $4 million if your futures contract or your options contracts is, massive leverage? 100 times leverage, put a few million into that.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but that makes sense. Well, yeah, I like to think. Well, I'm thinking that there are probably some pretty sophisticated market manipulators involved at this point in Bitcoin.
That really looked like someone was trying to push it below a support level, and it was only on this exchange. On the other exchanges, they wanted to go up.
Right, every other exchange was between $10 and $20 more per Bitcoin during that time. So you could have, bought as many Bitcoins as you could buy on Bitstamp and go sell them for a profit elsewhere during that 14-hour window. But anyway, bizarre. Here's a little bit of commentary on it. If you want to take a look and read more about it, somebody drew a whale on the Bitcoin wall. These are people waiting for Bitcoin to go below 300. Somebody put together. But anyway, check it out.
That's awesome.
Could it just be that he didn't know about how big the amount was, so that he just put like a 300 limit, and then he just...
Yeah, the lazy option, right? Yeah, that was what Manu said. Maybe the guy just was like, oh, I don't really care if I take a loss. I don't really care about maximizing my profits. I'm just gonna dump these 30,000.
Yeah, that's how I like when I did my fund on banking. I just remember the Indonesian exchange rate was 2% cheaper than the rest of the world, and I just dumped all my fiat on it, and it went like 2-3% higher.
Yeah, you pushed the market.
Average.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it takes too much time.
Yeah, I just couldn't be. I wasn't going to sit around for hours on the exchange. I just wanted it done.
This is a lot of money.
Um,
They say that people who make a lot of money or have a lot of money don't give it away very much. So.
they always say time is money.
Well, anyway, whoever did that lost quite a bit of money during that time. So anyway, it made our week more interesting. Entertainment value for us. Maybe that's why he did it.
Good analysis point.
Yeah. Let's see. I wanted to throw this up there. This is a billboard that's been up in Silicon Valley, I think, since 2011 or so. Anybody hear about the honey badger meme that was around? Anyway, I'll show you in a second what it is. But essentially, the people have predicted that Bitcoin is going to die many times, right? And that's what precipitated this person throwing this billboard up in Silicon Valley. A honey badger is like this really ferocious little rodent that can kill snakes and I don't know. It's like basically a little tough guy, right? So they started calling Bitcoin the honey badger of money, and it's really a part of this meme. You can see there's 69 million people have watched this honey badger video.
This is the honey badger.
Oh, yeah.
Watch it
Are you
run
guys
in slow
familiar with this?
motion.
I'm not going to play the whole thing, but
It's pretty badass. Look, it runs all over the place. Whoa, watch out, says that bird. Ew, it's got a snake. Oh, it's chasing a jackal. Oh my gosh. Oh, the honey badgers are just crazy. The honey badger has been referred to by the Guinness Book of World Records as the most fearless animal in all of the animal kingdom. It really doesn't give a shit. If it's a
anyway, you get the idea. We'll put the link in the show notes. Check it out. Obviously, 69 million people can't be wrong. There must be some entertainment value there. This is something that was posted in Bitcoins in Bali. Let me get the audio going on here so you guys can hear. More speculation on why the Bitcoin price is going down. This was a talk I think Stephen mentioned at an alternative currencies conference, and I don't know if you're aware or not, but there are alternative currencies that predate Bitcoin by a long shot. In fact, communities have been creating community-based currencies for a long time, and there's quite a global community and movement around alternative currencies, right? But the success of Bitcoin has kind of, well, there's kind of a rift between the old school alternative currency folks and Bitcoin for whatever reason. Stephen plays in both worlds, but mostly they kind of poo-poo one another, or the alternate currency folks poo-poo Bitcoin, but this guy makes some points that are kind of interesting. It's a short one. I'll play it for you. Let's see.
It's 44 for 44. It's not.
Let's see.
I can rewind it. Drag.
You go to that screen.
Oh,
Like,
there we go.
there you go.
Wait, when I play, we need some audio. Everybody's got to get the speakers right. Is that on?
Is it only on this speaker?
Like a Bluetooth speaker system, so anyway, just like jack into it.
All right, we'll just have to throw some on my speakers here.
You think for SMEs struggling with liquidity in the real economy doesn't help at all with but when you talk about Bitcoin as a currency, as monetary innovation, I must say there are others around the world that are really doing a lot more innovative and useful work. Bitcoin really
You guys can't hear that, can you?
It doesn't do anything
Okay.
for SMEs.
All right, you guys can watch it on your own.
It doesn't help.
Essentially, it
Economic inequality is ripping
Oh,
us
yeah,
up.
we've got it. It's going to be. Just have to plug in the speakers. You know?
Oh, the speakers. All right.
She's on.
Oh, all right.
And it's good and everything.
I know.
No, that one.
Yeah, now it's like it's no lights.
I reckon whenever those cables get dumped, the computer goes out.
No,
It's a dodgy.
It's really bad for this one.
Should plug that into it. Technical difficulties. Yeah.
It's wrong.
It's warming up.
No, it doesn't say that here.
Sorry, folks. Oh, I think we've got it.
We can just logo.
Yeah, but I can't see the.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Moody's.
Oh, all right. Yeah. All right, let's try this one more time.
But when you talk about Bitcoin as a currency, as monetary innovation, there I must say there are others around the world that are really doing a lot more innovative and useful work. Bitcoin really falls behind that. It doesn't do anything for SMEs struggling with liquidity in the economy. It doesn't help at all with the economic inequalities ripping apart our societies. It doesn't help us finance the adaptations to climate change. There's nothing on these cards in Bitcoin. And so if you look at what really defines the impact of the currency to the world out there, how it's issued, to whom, under which rules and objectives, there Bitcoin is really amazingly conservative, limited, and no offense to all the guys on the panel here, but it's also just really macho with all the good and bad that comes to that.
So did you guys catch that last little criticism? Bitcoin is macho.
With
So,
the tough guys.
yes.
Yeah, it's badass.
Yes, macho, the macho currency. That could be why the price has gone down, because it's
Just too much.
yes, it's just too macho.
It
It needs to be knocked down a peg.
A male honey badger. Macho honey
Yes, yes, the honey badger is very
How can
macho.
we make it more feminine?
How can we get in touch with our feminine side?
We make the logo
Maybe.
flowery, maybe.
badger.
Bitcoin with flowers.
We've got viewers in New Zealand. Hello to Milan and Kristen.
Ah,
Wow.
oh, cool.
We can make it pink.
Yeah, pink logo, pink Bitcoin logo. Hello, Milan and Kristen. Wish you guys were here. All right, let's see what else we've got here. It's time for Bitcoin number of the week by Will. Bitcoin number of the week. Take it away, Will.
Let's do this. So, where's the mouse? Can't see it. Is it this?
There you go.
Oh, yeah, got it. Okay. Bitcoin mining. So, Bitcoin mining uses electricity. So it's an interesting article that came up this week over here. They're looking at how to mine Bitcoin by hand. So
Do one round and the start of 256, we start with 8 inputs, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H.
we won't go through it, but you can actually do a hashing algorithm by hand, and the number of the week is 16.75, which is how long it takes by hand to do a SHA-256 hash. And
How long in minutes?
Yeah, in minutes.
It takes 16.75 minutes to do a SHA
So
hash by
a SHA
hand.
hash. So
I better get mine.
Bitcoin has blocks in a blockchain. Every transaction that goes on the network gets hashed, which is pretty much just compacting this big number into a fingerprint. And we use this algorithm called a SHA-256. And about 128 currently of these come together every 10 minutes. And then off the end of it, we do a thing called a proof of work, which is like a hashing game. It's finding a needle in the haystack. So you do all these hashes, about 128 of them, and then you do this final hash. And if you get the needle in the haystack, then you win the prize worldwide, and that gets docked to the blockchain.
That prize is 10 Bitcoins, right? Or
25.
25, and all the transaction fees that come with it. So if you work that out, it works out to be 2/3, 0.67 of a hash. Well, they call a hash hashing the whole block every day. And if we look at the current, let's have a look, oh, we're missing a link. link. Let's just do this. Hashing rate. There we go. Here is the hash rate. This is how many hashes we get from the network every second.
So what takes a human 16 minutes to do, it does that?
It takes us 2/3. No, we can do 2/3 of a hash in a day. And currently the network does 275 million billion hashes per second. Right? So
That's faster than a human.
Perspective vortex.
it's
That's faster than a human.
So how long?
Yeah, it's a little bit faster than human.
So to mine 1 Bitcoin by hand, is that what we're going to see next?
So yeah, let's see how long it would take. So I pumped this number in. This is how many gigahashes or hashes that the network's doing, times 3,600, which is hourly, and then 24 hours, and then divide by 0.67. So that gives you the ratio of the network versus one person. And then there's about 144 10-minute blocks per day divided by 365 gives you the year. And then I just divide by 1 billion and you get this number, which is roughly 675 billion. No, 600. Where's the comma? Yeah, 675 billion.
Million.
No, 675 million billion years to mine a block and win your
To mine one block.
Yeah, and that's assuming you could do all that in 10 minutes to compete. So it's quite unrealistic. So you need a time machine as well. We did have that one. There we go. So in comparison, the age of the Earth is 4.5 billion years, and the age of the universe is 13.8 billion. So what it's saying is, if you could live the age of the universe 50 million times, you can mine 1 block of Bitcoin. And that gives you an idea of the scale of the computation power to lock into a block of, to load up a block onto the blockchain and make that legit. So you need a lot of computational power. About 400 million last time I looked.
That's exhausting.
Or 50 million ages of the universe.
What was that? What was that? That fable where the guy went against the steam engine or something, like O. Henry or John Henry? Yeah. This would be like no contest. John Henry just
do it.
No.
All right, that's the number.
Okay.
Real quick.
Cool.
So does still make sense to mine Bitcoins or by now it's about trading and commerce about Bitcoin. I'm not that into the tools, but I remember the times when people used to buy a machine just to mine Bitcoin. It makes still sense today, or it today is better than
Yeah, I think that's one of the criticisms of Bitcoin is the centralization of the mining capacity. It has left the realm of the individual, and now there are big companies. What did you say, Manu? There's some company in Australia bought several $1 million worth of mining equipment. And
Yeah, publicly listed.
went public, and
Wow.
yeah,
It's all becoming very centralized. It's very hard for the. I mined last year for about 3 months, just with 2 graphics cards, and in that 3-month period, I made about 6 Bitcoins or so. If I was using that same hardware now in the same period, I'd probably make like 1 Bitcoin or something. Yeah, it's more and more evolving into the big boys. The more money you have, the more Bitcoins you can mine. This is one of the things that pushed me into the altcoin space. There's a lot of other mining algorithms now that don't use so much electricity and are more accessible to people. It's all like they haven't got anywhere near the adoption that Bitcoin has, and it's all a big, up for grabs. Who's going to get that working first? Well, hopefully my one.
yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's Bitcoin was its aim was to democratize the money so that anyone could flip on their computer and mine some Bitcoin, but it hasn't quite worked out that way. And a lot of altcoins are attempting to solve that problem. It's a problem. It's a technical problem and it's a sociological problem. How do you distribute the coins in an equitable way? The initial coins. It's a ongoing problem. Stay tuned. We haven't solved that one yet.
They've even tried like airdropping coins. You know, like that. Have you heard about the airdrops that different countries have tried to do?
Like Aurora coin and
Yeah, I think that
Iceland.
was, yeah, in Iceland, they just like, all right, everyone can register and then just get like some coins and then we'll distribute them evenly among society to start off, and then we'll just go. And what people are finding is it's about community. If you're just trying to push it out there and people aren't getting on board with any, you know, enthusiasm or excitement or willingness to engage, it's like someone giving you a coupon for something that you're just going to throw away the next day. So unless you have a community around what you're doing, then and Bitcoin has a huge community now, and I think that community is probably reflective of the price of Bitcoin. If there was no community, if there was no people giving it value by believing in it, then it would have no value. So Bitcoin has the biggest community by far of all the different cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, it's funny because some people, when they're criticizing Bitcoin, they say, well, you know, it's a Ponzi scheme because if you got in early, then it's worth more. But really, those people that got in early, they were voting for the viability of that. And like Manu said, if you tried to give Bitcoin away to somebody before Bitcoin was a thing, they'd probably shrug their shoulders and say, you know, I don't even want it.
Don't waste my time.
Right. Don't waste my computing power. Don't waste my time. Yeah, so therein lies some of the complexities of giving away coins or giving away value or equitably distributing an initial distribution of coins. It's a tricky business, but somebody will figure it out eventually. All right, more news. This hit the news today or yesterday. Blockchain.info is the wallet that we've been advocating since we started getting together on these Tuesday nights. Great outfit. They just secured the largest round of funding ever for a Bitcoin startup, $30 million. So it's interesting. I'm wondering what these guys are going to do. They've definitely got the ethos of Bitcoin in their blood, in their DNA. One of the reasons that I like the wallet is they always keep control of the private keys in your possession. So you actually always have control of your Bitcoin, and they do not.
We control the private key, not them.
Yes, yes. You control your Bitcoin even though you're using their wallet based on the architecture that they've chosen. They store a copy of your key, but it's decrypted or it's encrypted using your password, which only you know. They don't store your password. This is one of the reasons why if you lose your password with blockchain.info, you're up a creek without a paddle, because that's you can. There's a way to do it, but it's not fun.
I just did that with mycelium a couple days ago, and that was hell.
What happened? You lost your what?
I lost my mycelium pin. It took me about 5 hours to get my Bitcoin out.
I could have done it for you. You got to root your phone, store it in plain text.
I just uninstalled mycelium and reinstalled it eventually because I had the codes.
Oh, you had the paper backup.
Yeah, I just had no idea how to fucking use it.
Anyway, adventures in Bitcoin. That's why we're all together. We help one another. Don't go through it alone, Eddie.
I'll come to you guys.
Yes.
Yeah, man.
Reach out. Anyway, these guys just got $30 million. I'm really excited to see what they're going to do with it.
Take control of your private keys.
Yes, yes, I'm sure they'll.
We have investors now. We need
Yes.
money. We're now a bank. Give us your keys. Well, there's the one called Circle. You know about Circle? Circle they've had a big marketing campaign. They've got a very sleek looking website. And it might be interesting to show them that website, just to show the opposite of blockchain, because that Circle is the one where you don't get to keep any of your keys. They don't even give you that.
But they have insurance.
Oh, excellent.
Yes, were you aware of that? Yes. That's their answer to.
Oh yeah, that you don't need your keys because you have insurance.
Yes. Well, and it's just interesting that the whole invention of Bitcoin was to avoid that kind of arrangement, and yet there's seems to be quite a large market of people that are perfectly willing to give back that control to a third party. And
does it say what they valued that company at? Was it 30 million injection?
I don't know. Okay, at circle.com. Like
I'm not sure.
they paid a lot for that URL if they did. Anyway, yeah. Hello, money.
Solid. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. I mean, they're coming. These are the guys that want to create the new Bitcoin banking system.
Yes. Yeah, it's Jeremy Allaire.
They got piles of money, and they're like, yeah, let's make this into a bank.
They're located in New York, which is where the bit license legislation is pending. This is the establishment, pretty much.
I had this debate with some people in Silicon Valley when I was there. Is if these wallets and startups keep doing it on this model, are we just bringing in a new fractional reserve banking system? Because once they control the funds, they're just like a bank again. They can start saying you've got 100 Bitcoins in your account, and then they start lending Bitcoins, playing with the Bitcoins, say, oh no, you can't withdraw all your Bitcoins in one day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got to, oh no, you got to get your ATM card before you can withdraw your Bitcoins. And
yeah,
we just go in the same way again. But it's difficult because they make it so easy for the user to get on board.
Yeah, and they do a lot of marketing.
Yeah.
But are Bitcoin users against fractional banking? Or are they just against?
Well, there's two. I mean, you have like the crypto anarchist communities and the libertarians, all these other guys that are about, we should have control of our own money. We don't like deficit spending. We don't like how inflation is used to manipulate society. And then you have people that are just like, I want to make money, or I want to use it for utility, or it sounds good. There's a big, there's all different demographics in the Bitcoin community.
Right, but it's a fragile system, right? Fractional reserve. If there's confidence that's you lose confidence in the banking, then everyone's going to pull their Bitcoins out. They won't have it. So the banking folds, and then the monetary system folds, and you can't trade. It's the same thing with everything.
Yeah. Well, and it distributes power to those controlling to the bankers. And that's what we have right now with the existing financial system. By controlling monopolizing the issuance of currency to society, then you can issue bonds and you can do deficit spending, you can go to war, you can do all these things based on currency controls at its source.
Right, but there's a difference between fractional banking, for example, with a gold standard versus fractional banking that's not backed by anything. And I thought, and I'm totally new to the Bitcoin currency, so
yeah,
this is what I'm asking to learn.
Yeah, so the original thing with Bitcoin was, because it's finite and limited, like gold, it is like a commodity-based currency rather than like a classic fiat currency where the people in control can just print as much as they want. That amount to be printed, amount to be released into circulation in Bitcoin is autonomous, predictable, and transparent. So
Which sounds awesome. So, but I don't think that precludes you from having a banking system where you have reserves and you can multiply your money supply by loaning it out. In fact, that seems quite beneficial to society. Societies that tend not to lend tend to stagnate.
Yeah, but it's just other ways to lend. Like you can have crowdsourced lending, for example, where everyone puts in coins and or votes on what projects they want to fund and things like that, as opposed to a classic, like centrally controlled loan, where people give up their money and they never think about it again. And maybe there's a space for both.
But I mean, and then it's like division of labor, right? Like I work all day, I earn a check. You're a bank. I assume you have a lot better judgment in terms of what kind of business projects deserve lending than I do. Crowdsourcing is a great idea. Don't get me wrong. It's really important for a large number of small startups, but
yeah,
I don't think you're gonna fund large important like,
Yeah, but with the advent of cryptocurrencies and smartphones, and you know how easy the technology we have, that function of I earn my daily check and I don't know where to put it that's safe. My only option is to put it in the bank. It's under the mattress, piles of notes, not very safe. That for now we have another option that isn't use the bank. We can be our own bank. So,
right. Yeah, fractional reserve banking is also based on. You said that you know, you could have a gold standard, right? And then people are passing around IOUs for the gold because the carry costs of gold are such that you want to have it with a third party.
Right.
And that
goes through booms and busts, but it's also arguably an incredibly efficient system for growing the economy.
Yeah, but nothing's linked to gold anymore. It hasn't been since the 70s.
Right, so, but that's what I'm saying, like, cryptocurrency really turns me on. But I wouldn't want to...
like indict.
Cryptocurrency really turns you on, but you're not sure if you're going to get into bed with it. So I'm aroused, but you know, we need to talk a little more.
It seems like a step forward, but it seems like a step backward to get rid of fractional reserve banking. Like, that's like one of the greatest inventions of...
What you're saying is it's like gold-backed currency. You can back it, and then you have a fractional reserve of gold, and then this would be the equivalent of, instead of gold, you have another scarcity, which is Bitcoin, which is unscrewable.
Right, and nobody can make the decision, in theory, my understanding, right, to say...
And so also what you're saying is you can expand or contract the money supply easily. And the big question I have is, with Bitcoin, there's another way of doing it. Rather than expand the money supply with, you know, more dots to the left, you can divide. It can be infinitely divisible, right? So, you know, we could go to less than 8 decimal places as the economy within it grows. And that's experimental, right? We've never done that before.
Well, I don't know if anybody follows, like, Peter Schiff, like, I predicts the world. He would argue that you actually want your currency, instead of inflating, going to deflate. I mean, it's another way. It's the Austrian School of Economic Thought, not the standard Community, but the idea that being, as we become more productive as a society, as we produce more goods and more services more cheaply, your dollar or your Bitcoin can purchase more.
Right. We've been taught, though, that deflation is a bad word, and actually deflation is really bad for governments because well, first of all, inflation is a hidden tax, so they can raise taxes without most people realizing. But also, if the money supply is constantly inflating, then they also can tax the increase in people's salaries, whereas if people can buy more with the same salary, then they're not bringing in more income tax-wise that way. So
governments love inflation.
They do. In fact, the Fed's policy right now is to cause inflation. That's their stated goal, and why they're printing money to beat the band. But
one thing that I find interesting about the government's stance on inflation, and in terms of Austrian inflation, in terms of expanding the monetary supply, is that so the government's massively in debt, right? And the people are massively in debt. But having the people in debt keeps people working. But in order to
reduce respect.
Yeah, in order to get rid of the government's debt, they have to inflate their currency and destroy their currency, if you like. But if they destroy their currency, if they inflate their currency into oblivion, all the existing debts will also be inflated away as well. And you have like scenario like end of Germany, World War II, where the Wehrmacht went through the roof, and everyone that had a mortgage could pay their mortgage off the equivalent of like a day's labor, because the currency, all the debts were tied to that currency. So it's very interesting to see, like, the governments know they want to get out of debt, but they don't want to release society from debt, and where they go with that. They seem to be just going the inflation route. It'd be interesting to see if people start to shape bonds and contracts away from the US dollar now in the international markets, or back into commodities or something.
Yeah, well, since Bretton Woods, the world has been relying on the dollar to be an accounting mechanism with integrity. That's no longer the case. So there are the BRICS nations, for example, are forming their own development bank and doing their own deals for that very reason. Because while there's a new monetary system on the horizon, we just don't know what that is or what it's going to look like. Something's going to happen though. But actually, that's a good segue to the next news item, because fractional reserve banking is already taking place. Fake Chinese Bitcoins. There's no way to actually fake a Bitcoin unless you're doing fractional reserve banking. If you've got 10,000 customers and they all have, a certain balance of Bitcoins according to you, and you're showing them that balance when they log in, but you don't really have those Bitcoins, that's a fake Bitcoin. Because when you go to withdraw, you might not be able to withdraw, right? So they're actually, and I think that's the problem people have with fractional reserve banking is it's like a bit of a fiction. If you have your bank account, you log into your bank account, you think that money is there, but if everybody tried to get all of their money at the same time, it's actually not there. Well, when that happens, it's a problem. It just happens rarely and catastrophically. But that's what's starting to happen in the Bitcoin space. Just like we were talking about big time speculators getting involved in the Bitcoin marketplace. There's big time fractional reserve banking that's also taking place in the space, and that's what they're referring to when they say fake Chinese Bitcoins. But actually, real Bitcoins cannot be forged. That's part of the invention of it. Part of the genius of it is that it can't be forged or double spent. But interesting article.
So they're creating exchanges or banks sort of things, and people are putting their coins into, and the people running the exchanges are using the coins for other things or something?
Well, it's just off blockchain, so you can make up balances as you please. You only get caught when everyone withdraws.
Right. And then you can manipulate the market, which is one of the points this article makes. You've got billions of people, and you can show the price rising, right? Show your price rising because you've got the ability to basically fake everybody out.
Wasn't that Mt. Gox? Like it was that bot that caused the spike last year to $1,200 per coin, and it was a bot. It was just
the Willy bot.
Yeah, the Willy bot.
Yeah, did you write it? Yeah, that was fractional reserve banking as well, right? The coins weren't actually there, and when people tried to withdraw their coins, they said, "Oh, sorry, you can't do it right now," and pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. And finally, the gig was up.
Yeah, it's still unclear if that was a hack or if it was an inside job.
I like that picture. It's good propaganda.
5% of Bitcoin.
BitNation. This is an interesting thing. Davey, you posted this. There's a good interview also on Let's Talk Bitcoin about this. Essentially, they're trying to replace government with the blockchain technology. You can see here it seems like the buzzword of 2014 is the DAO or the DAC. This is a distributed autonomous corporation, and arguably Bitcoin is the first distributed autonomous organization because it runs itself. There is no Bitcoin company. There's no head of the snake. There's no one to attack, but it just kind of works. And they're trying to do this with all kinds of other aspects of government. We rely on government for our money, at least until Bitcoin came along, and they're like, oh, well, hey, why can't we have deeds for property on a blockchain, and why can't we have marriage licenses on a blockchain, and why can't we replace all kinds of things that government does with blockchain technology? It's a really interesting idea. They're trying to create the whole stack. What is it? ID, dispute resolution, insurance, diplomacy. I'm not quite sure how they'll do diplomacy. That would be interesting to automate diplomacy. Anyway, it's a really interesting idea. Check it out. Fascinating. Yeah? Comment?
I was wondering, again, if somebody could explain that in terms of an idiot, like a 5-year-old that I am. So if I wanted to get married and I feel like, oh, I'm not married in any country or state, but Bitcoin says something. How does that work?
Well, the interesting thing about
Bitcoin,
you have to, first of all, you have to be really nerdy to get married on the blockchain. That's a prerequisite. Then what you do is you basically make an entry on the blockchain that says, you know, I'm marrying this person, or you make some sort of, because basically it's a distributed database. The blockchain, all it is a distributed ledger. So anybody at any time can say something on the blockchain. Let's say you had an invention, right? You could actually, like, say you had this invention, put it up on the blockchain, and then you always can point to that item as a record that something took place.
That anybody in the world can access.
Right, that anybody in the world can verify, and it can't be changed or erased without, you know, dismantling the entire blockchain, which is impossible.
But if you have no legal system behind it, marriage, you can marry 20, 30,000 people, but you can divorce before you get married, like in Las Vegas.
Yeah, you can get divorced before you get married. That's good.
Wow.
Yeah. If there's no legal system, no legal, you know, presumably it's a way to resolve some dispute in the future, right? Like, we're not married. Yes, we are. We're not married. Oh, there it is in the blockchain. So, you know, you have to pay me alimony or
You
whatever.
can start to automate the legal system. Like if you have a contract between two people tied in with a cryptocurrency or a crypto asset that can be based on a set of events and variables. You know, like if I get the plans ready by this date, then funds will come through to start building the house or whatever. You can just code that now. That's one of the things that Ethereum is really pushing, is this concept of smart contracts. And as other elements, as other tangibles become digitized, you know, you have a pin on your car and it's tied into a blockchain, and we have a consensus among the community that I put it on the blockchain and that's my car, and everyone else starts to use that as their system from, like for example, the notary system. There's some country in Africa that has 2 notary systems running at once, so they can never decide who owns what, you know. And countries that have evolved have a single notary system. We can have a global notary system on a digital blockchain. It just requires everyone to agree that this is the notary system and this is what
That's all? Everyone has to agree?
It's all about consensus, yeah.
That should be easy.
Well, what you can agree on is the reality of a certain thing at a certain time, right? And like for a marriage or a deed or something, you can make.
That's what I'm saying. If you say we're married, but what does married mean? Married in Bali doesn't mean the same thing as in
Well, married in
California.
blockchain means married anywhere, assuming that you're not talking about law, you're talking about a document that's been confirmed and signed. Then the way the blockchain works is that every 10 minutes or so, it updates, and all the computers who are mining will go, okay, here's what I think has happened in the entire history of the blockchain. And they all agree that at some point, your marriage contract happened. So
Okay, but in one place you can get married to several people, but in another place you can't. So what does this marriage mean?
Well, I mean, if we're going to talk about what does marriage mean, I think it's a horrible concept and we should do it. You guys both definitely signed a document. That's essentially what it means. If you want to go to like the courts of it, that's a whole other thing, but it means the document has been signed and you can't deny that.
Yeah, it's you know, normally you would go to the state that issued the marriage license and say, okay, the state says yes, you two are married, and this is, you know, an attempt to have an alternate record that doesn't involve a real third party.
But the state has a definition of what a marriage means.
Right, and you know,
Which is specific and jurisdictional.
right. Well, and you could actually define whatever you think is marriage in the context of what you're agreeing on at that point in time, and put that on the blockchain as well.
You can make up your own definition and put that in the contract. Like marriage means we have sex every 3 days, or it's divorce.
That's a smart contract, right?
So how does the software detect that
you've had sex
2 times? Yeah.
It could involve a lot of travel.
Yeah, that'd be a difficult smart contract to write.
Yeah, can you have that ready for us next week? A little demo.
So it's an anarchistic thing, right? It's contingent on lots of people in the world just saying, hey, this is the contracts we have between us. Let's write it on the blockchain and agree to it.
Yeah. Well, and then when the smart contracts come to fruition and they start to become a reality, then you can start referring to those contracts programmatically and making decisions based on what happens. And that's when you start replacing the legal system, which is exciting.
And also, Bitcoin already fits into a lot of nation-state legal systems in whatever they've defined it to be. For example, in America, Australia, they define it as a commodity. So if you have a normal contract in a normal business with another entity or individual that says, if X happens, I will be paid 1,000 Bitcoins. Just because it's Bitcoin doesn't suddenly mean you're totally off the world and can't engage in the old system at all. That would still stand up in a court of law as a defined commodity, as defined by the state, and you would have all the avenues for legal recourse to say, I want my Bitcoins to be paid to me or whatever. So there is levels, there is integration into the old system still, if you're still living on the old legal system.
Yep. Yeah, fascinating stuff. It's a whole new world. All right, Russia to issue ban and fines for cryptocurrency. If you're going to Russia, here's the deal. If you use Bitcoins in Russia, you're going to be fined $1,260. This is really interesting. If you're an official, you have to pay a little bit more. I guess that's because you're getting a little under the table, or maybe it's a little more profitable. Yeah. And then if you're a company, you get fined $25,000.
So there's no jail time. It's just every time you get caught, you got to cough up $1,200.
Yeah, that's kind of how the system works, right? Yeah. But what's interesting is Russia.
Can you pay in Bitcoin?
Yeah. Russia has actually banned in the past the U.S. dollar. And right now, Argentina has capital controls for the U.S. dollar. I don't think you're allowed to have more than 2,000 U.S. dollars or something like that in Argentina. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if they can enforce this. Probably it will mean that the oligarchs will have it and the common people probably won't. What this really means is that Russia will miss out on the economic advantages of using cryptocurrency, and people who have business ideas will not start their business in Russia. They'll go and start it in another part of the world.
Do you remember, was it Andreas
Andreas Antonopoulos?
Yeah, that guy. He was saying if Russia bans it, then it'll put an evolutionary drive onto the Bitcoin technology to evolve and become more distributed, more decentralized, and untraceable.
Right. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
That's exciting.
Yeah, because there is a need for cryptocurrency, and if it doesn't work in its current incarnation in the regulatory environment in Russia, then maybe they'll make something more anonymous or harder to trace or more stealthy. Life finds a way, right? Mm-hmm. So that's cool. Interesting bit of news. This guy, what's his name? David Marcus, ex-PayPal guy, has gone to Facebook, and Facebook is talking about a peer-to-peer payment mechanism using their messenger technology. So it's quite interesting that this guy, David Marcus, from PayPal, big Bitcoin supporter, by the way, is moving to Facebook. You can speculate all you like, but it would be very interesting if Facebook got involved with the transmission of Bitcoin using the Facebook network. Sky's the limit.
The messenger is so dodgy. Everybody hides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So invasive.
China already does it with WeChat.
It's a Trojan.
Yeah.
China, you can do lots of transactions in WeChat.
Really?
How does it work? I haven't used it. It was the first thing was on for taxis. It's kind of part of an Uber style thing.
Right.
And then it's moved to peer-to-peer.
Yeah. I think it's just a matter of time. I mean, it's inevitable that these mechanisms will find their most efficient delivery mechanism, whether that be messenger or...
Yeah, but in what form and who controls it?
Yeah, well, that'll be dictated by the sensitivity of the population and how astute they are. I mean, there's more information than ever on the fact that those kinds of things happen, that kind of surveillance happens. But do people care or not is the question. Or do they even advocate it? Money laundering laws are really financial surveillance laws, and people are all for anti-money laundering. laws and surveillance. That's, you won't find many Americans that think money laundering is a good thing.
Yeah, it's very. I mean, it's Apple's trying to do it as well, like trying to create currency, but currency. It was only a matter of time before Facebook tried as well. There was that Zynga on Facebook platform, with all their like heydays and farm your fake crops, whatever games. They the amount of currency within that system, they're like Zynga coins or whatever. Prior to like this was quite a few years ago. And that would be interesting to find that statistic and where that ranks in the world of currency, because that was already like, I think it was tens of billions of dollars. Yeah.
Of billions.
Tens of billions. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is virtual currency, virtual money. It's here to stay, and yeah, it's not surprising that PayPal would get involved. Definitely.
I think all the major platforms in China have actually.
Yeah.
Weibo Pay and Alipay as well.
Yeah. Yeah, fascinating. All right. Quickly, this is another one from Davey, and this is not a Bitcoin story, but it's a decentralization story. The protesters in Hong Kong used an application that I think was FireChat, developed on the Playa at Burning Man. For a mesh net. So if you've got a phone with Bluetooth and you can communicate with all the phones within range of your Bluetooth, and they can communicate with all the phones within that range, and all of a sudden you've got a communication network it doesn't go through any kind of central authority, no cell towers, no internet service provider.
You have enough users across, you can take it around the earth. Yes, you have enough close enough users.
The backbone's hard to do, like across between, like the island from Bali to Java. Those bits are hard, but for localized, yeah, the more that. I've got it on my phone. I haven't found anyone else yet.
Did you have FireChat?
Yeah,
I was on that, and I just got bored.
Talking to yourself. Is anybody out there?
In Bali.
Route through TCP/IP if it doesn't find anything.
No, it's purely Bluetooth. But like there's like proprietary technologies like WiMAX and stuff that it's already like old tech that can fit in the phone, that can do like 2 or 3 kilometers. As soon as I know, but from a tower, I think from a phone, I don't know if we can do that far. But perhaps once these, if we can like make open source variants of this, we don't need ISPs anymore. Our decentralized internet running on our own devices.
Yeah, well, it's part of a mega trend. I mean, decentralization is the trend of our time. It's happening in money. It's happening in networks. It's happening with food distribution and energy even. So we're seeing this happen. This is part of a major trend, and it's cool that they were able to use this technology in the protests and communicate freely. I think that's a fundamental human right of association and speech.
And it was a very good quality protest. It was very peaceful and responsible, and it was amazing.
Yes, very polite. That's good. I've got a bunch of charts I was going to talk about, but I'm not going to have time tonight. But I'll put this in the show notes, and you can take a look at yourself. But this is all of the Bitcoin by the numbers, not really by the numbers, but a lot of the charts associated with Bitcoin and an explanation of them. If you want to learn a little bit more about what makes Bitcoin tick, you can take a look at this.
Have you got the latest logarithmic in there?
I don't think so. Logarithmic price graph.
We've been really getting into looking at things in logarithmic form. It's very interesting. It gives you a whole different perspective.
It does. It does. Well, things are happening exponentially, so that's yeah. More Facebook news on the Facebook merger. Bill Gates also chimed in. This is really short. I'll play it for you.
To move money from place to place. The cost of doing so, the overhead, as you put it, makes me think, believe it or not, of Bitcoin, because some people have said, hey, Bitcoin is the answer to those problems. Are you a believer? Well, Bitcoin is exciting because it shows how cheap it can be. Bitcoin is better than currency in that you don't have to be physically in the same place.
And of course, for large transactions, currency can get pretty inconvenient. The customers we're talking about aren't trying to be anonymous. You know, they're willing to be known. So the Bitcoin technology is key, and you could add to it, or you could build a similar technology where there's enough attribution that people feel comfortable. This has nothing to do with terrorism or any type of money laundering.
It's interesting. I mean, you can see that he's definitely part of the establishment. But he understands the technology of Bitcoin and is, trying to diffuse all of these old kind of fear, uncertainty, and doubt about Bitcoin being used by nefarious people for nefarious purposes. I think it's, if my grandmother's watching Bill Gates, I think maybe she can get behind some of the things he's saying. So it's cool when someone that high profile. Yeah, a little bit. He's the whole reason that Google's mantra is "Don't be evil," right? They're referring to Microsoft when they came up with that. Are they really? Oh, his foundation has done quite a bit of good, but yeah, I guess your mileage will vary. But we're going to give Bill Gates the last word tonight. Thanks everybody for coming. We're out of time, but do check out the Bitcoins in Bali Facebook page. Post your stories there, and we get together here at Hubud Co-working Space every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Thanks for coming, guys. All right.